We try to create experiences for our customers and our consumers. But there are times in our lives where experiences are created for us.
Hey, dog.
Hey, Elise, how are you?
You think about the major events in our lives, there's always an amazing food experience tied to it.
Good morning.
It's what brings people together. And that's where people get to share their beliefs about who they are and what they stand for. There are neighbors, there are friends, different cities, different communities.
You know, when we come together, we can make a better world.
A whirlwind of a person who's not going to take no for an answer.
There was only one greatest generation, and, I admire those guys so much.
I was truly amazed at how kind the world could be.
These are stories that absolutely have to be told.
I think it's something that we really need.
It's about what we can do for others. That's powerful.
Hi, my name is Steve Licken, and I'm president of Jennie-O Turkey Store, part of the Hormel Foods family of companies. I'm joined today by April Kanzenbach, who will not only be one of our panelists, she's also helping us interpret sign language during the discussion. And let me tell you, she's awesome. Thank you, April, for being with us. I'm also joined by Ethan Waters, an award-winning writer who's been involved with several of the stories you're going to be hearing this week. Not that Ethan isn't also awesome, but he doesn't sign like April does. Before I introduce today's film, I'd like to take a moment to address the fact that some of our panelists are wearing masks. I'll introduce them by name in just a moment, but first we wanted to let you know that these team members are calling in from our Jennie-O plant community in Faribault, Minnesota, where it's our current protocol to wear personal protective equipment at all times while inside the facility. Safety first is our company's core cultural belief. And since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've taken significant steps to prevent community spread from entering our workplace and impacting our team members, including temperature screening for all who enter the plant, masks and personal protective equipment, social distancing enhancements, and continuing education. So thank you to our panelists for keeping safety first in our plants. After all, you play a critical role in providing food to those who need it most during this pandemic. Our plant professionals are heroes in so many ways. Now with that, I'm really excited to be here today to share a story that has certainly moved me. A few years ago, we discovered we had some very special team members working in our Jennie-O facility in Faribault, Minnesota. For those of you who don't know Faribault, it's a great community and home to several of the country's top high schools, including a well-known school for the deaf. When Tung Trung, our supervisor at the facility, hired a team member from the deaf community to work in a complicated manufacturing facility, he knew it would be a challenge. But what he and others quickly discovered was a remarkable opportunity. Join me in
The war was going on at the city. My brother was sleeping at the bed, and there's a big rocket that hit the house. It destroyed half of the building. Because of the impact, my brother fell from the bed, and that caused really big damage in the inner ear, and that's how he became a deaf. Actually, he didn't born as a deaf. We're so lucky that we arrived to United States. I mean, it's a big dream for everybody.
His mom had worked for me before and said, hey, I have a son that I would like you to hire and give him a try, and told me that he was deaf, and Tung interviewed him.
Because he's deaf, he can't speak. I'm kind of like nervous. But after we walk around on the line, when I try to explain something, he pick up faster than the translator guy. So I feel like he don't need the translator.
Everything that we thought would maybe be a challenge, he overachieved at. He was as good as it gets, so.
So I talked to my boss and said, why don't we try that?
I was pretty amazed. So we got somebody in here to translate. That's how April came into the picture for us.
Being an interpreter and with my education, I know that the only thing deaf people can't do is hear.
Most of them, they say, we go out there and we try to find a job, nobody trusts us.
Especially when they haven't had that belief because of the background that they've had. My mindset coming into it, you can do this. Faisal worked at a bakery. He was given very tedious jobs. Arafat came over from Yemen. Over there, they're seen as being dumb because they're deaf.
And when they started coming in, they were just hungry. They were hungry to be leaders somewhere that they've never been given the opportunity. And Abdullahi started coming up with different ideas for us how to communicate better.
With Abdullahi coming in here to work and looking at him, you know, it's like, okay, deaf people can do this. I'm gonna show you that I can work. I'm gonna show you.
I mean, they're some of the best operators we've ever had.
His mom gets sick, and he's the only one to take care of his mom.
My mom, she's my hero. She sacrificed a lot of things to me, and right now it's my turn to pay her back. I want to make my mom proud all the time, all the time. I'm proud of him. He's the best son.
He's the most positive, energetic guy that I've ever met, especially with the challenges he's had in his life. So I think his mom is going to actually go back to her home country, is what he's telling me. And when she does, he wants to come back here. When they come in and they tell you they wanted to come here because they heard of the opportunity and they heard that we will give them a chance and that they've never had that before. I mean, one, you're proud of that. And the other, it almost breaks your heart that people don't see people for what they really are. You know, they see them for damaged goods, or they don't have the ability because of this, that, or the other thing. And, you know, when you listen to the story that they tell you that they came specifically for that reason, you know, it's a very humbling, very proud moment that, you know, and I tell my staff, I mean, that's what we're about. That's what we always need to be about. That'll be the difference between somebody going somewhere else for a job and staying and working for us.
Being deaf, being Muslim, you have so many obstacles that you have to face. Jennie-O has definitely provided a sense of community in a very broken world.
They're in the picnic and they wave American flag, and I'm almost crying because they are on the same page, you know. I mean, they come here and they know and they appreciate what they got now. Every culture, we must believe they can do it and give them a chance.
At other jobs, they just felt kind of defeated, and they came here and had new hope. We're all in this together. We're all a team. We're all a family, and this is how it's going to be.
I'm so proud of Tung's determination to not let a disability impact the employment of this young man. He was committed, and he strongly believed that something really good was going to come from hiring Abdullahi, and he indeed turned out to be an outstanding member of the team. Jennie-O has since welcomed many deaf team members to our family. Their story is one of dreams, perseverance, chances, and opportunity. It's truly incredible. Please join me in welcoming our special guests, Tung Trong, Mohammed Yaha, Arafat Saeed. Unfortunately, Abdullahi was not able to join us this afternoon, but we are so excited to be able to speak with this incredible group. So my first question is for Arafat. What was it like to have a film made about your story?
I mean, to have that video there and come, it was really exciting, you know, having to work, and it's been a good, and I've just been trying. And so it's been really great. You know, people have been here to help me. Tung was here to help me. I've been very grateful for that. And so, I mean, I only knew a little bit of gestures before. And so I really appreciate everybody helping me out too. So it's been really great. And Jody as well, you know, looking out for all of us. It's been a good experience. I mean, there's been so much stuff going on, and, you know, we've had to figure out separations right now with our food and just how we process everything. So it's been a good experience.
That's awesome.
I really like all the help that we have gotten. So I'm very grateful for that.
How about you, Mohammed? Now that you're a film star, what was it like to have a film made about your story?
Really, it's been very inspiring. It's been really, you know, having this movie. I've been very proud. You know, to work with, you know, such an awesome company, and I've really appreciated it. I've really enjoyed it. And, you know, when I see all the different stories going on, you know, it's like a lot of people will come in here and they move here to work, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh, deaf people can't, and they have got some sort of challenge, you know, they've got this communication barrier, and, you know, and people start to, like, you try to figure out, like, they're like, oh, deaf people can't do it because they can't speak. And, you know, so you really try to get these hopes and to show that people can do it, and that we have these skills, and, you know, that we can take care of it, and that it's important. We can just show each other stuff. So suppose, you know, if they think that, oh, you can't do that, you know, it's really important to hire somebody in. We can show you that we have the skills for it. And so when we've been hired, it's been very important to just really emphasize the fact that we can show that we have these skills. And, you know, when you have like Jody, you've got other people here that are very motivated, very excited to hire these people, because before we didn't have deaf people, and that, you know, it can be sad. You know, people sometimes want to quit for different reasons, but it's really important because we are a family, and, you know, and just to respect each other and their decisions. And it's been really awesome to really work here. And, you know, with the communication, because before I didn't have the communication access, you know, if we didn't have an interpreter, and then April came to interpret, and, you know, everything's been clarified so much more. Our communication has been a lot more fluid. You know, because we had some problems before. If there's any problem that comes up at work, you know, we can just talk to the supervisor. We can get it resolved right away, you know, and because we want to make sure that we have got food safety here. And so, you know, like with this whole COVID issue going on, we have all of that. And, you know, consumers want to buy it. And it's important, you know, it's like, oh, people are like, oh, maybe we don't want to go buy it. But really, it's really important to have this safety environment, like the safety oriented environment here, so that consumers can go out and they can buy their food. And so that's been really cool to have too.
What a great story. So Tung, you've been a long time supervisor of ours, and this is really a result of your leadership. What's interesting to me is that when I go into the plant, I can't hear anything. And so it would seem obvious that sign communication would work very well in the plant. Is that what helped you make this consideration and try this out with Abdullahi?
Actually, more we work with them day by day, and we get understand each other more. You know, sometimes we don't need to say anything. We just look at each other and we know what we need to be done next. So that make my job much easy. Because actually, from the beginning, what we give respect from each other, you know. So we listen and we learn from each other day by day. So that might make my job more easy. we come to that point. But actually, with the sign language, I'm not good with the sign language. And, most of the time we use the body language more than the sign language. So, something we need to get more communication with them or get more training with them. We get the April involved. But basically, what we do in daily, we're very good to understand each other.
That's great. So I have another question for Arafat. Did you lose your hearing when you were very young?
Yes, I was born deaf. I was born deaf. Yep, and then I just had to learn kind of how to gesture and how to communicate that way.
And so is his sign language, is it the same across the world, or are there many different sort of dialects within different countries and different settings?
Well, there's Spanish, there's Asian, there's a lot of different ones, and so we've just had to kind of go through the process of, working together too with the other people that are in the factory as well. So because I use Arabic. So okay. I use Arabic a lot more. My English and my ASL I can, but I'm still learning. That. So
how about you, Mohammed? Did you lose your hearing when you were young as well?
It happened when I got sick. Because I was born and I was hearing, and then I didn't become deaf until I was 1. So I got sick then. I got a really serious illness. So I was 1 year old when that happened.
So Mohammed, can you tell me a little bit about where you came from to get to where you are today? A little bit about your story?
Yep, sure. So I was actually born in Ghana. And so I didn't have a lot of education there. My family wanted me to come here to America, and because they wanted me to have a really good opportunity. And that was very important for my family. Because in Africa, there they thought that we were dumb, that I was dumb, that I couldn't, communicate. And so we decided to move over here to America. So I had better opportunities. And so that's why I ended up moving here.
Okay.
And then in Africa, they really, showed that deafness there. It's like, how can you do it? Because you can't hear. And so it was really seen as a negative over there. So here in America, it's more as a positive. There's a lot more equal rights here. And you're seen as a disability, but you have other opportunities here.
So you may be interested to know that I've actually personally been to Ghana while I've been working for Jennie-O, because we do a lot of business in Benin.
Oh, really? That's cool. Wow, that's so cool. Okay, cool.
How about you, Arafat? Can you tell me a little bit about where you came from to get here today?
So I moved over from Yemen. I came from Yemen. Yep. And I came here, and I had, some deaf friends that lived in Pennsylvania. And so I was there for a few days. And, kind of looked around, and then I actually went over to Virginia. So I went over there, and they're like trying to figure, okay, where's Arafat? So I'd actually lived over there in Virginia for a little bit. So then it's like, hey, come here. And so then together, that's where I stayed in Virginia for a little bit, stayed there for a few months, like 6 months or so. And then I had Abdullahi, I got connected with him, and he was like, hey, because I told him I was over in Virginia. And it's like, hey, come over here to Minnesota. And so we've got different deaf people over here, and it's a very exciting experience. So it's like, okay. So then, I told him I better stay. I'm going to go over to Minnesota. So we went there to try to get some more. I went there to kind of go get some opportunities. Stayed in Minnesota for a little bit. And Abdullah, he kind of helped and talked with me and try to help get through everything. And then I came into a restaurant. I actually worked at a restaurant for a little bit. I worked there for like 6 months. And Abdullahi then, got me the job here with tongue at Jennie-O, and that's been really exciting and very happy. And so I've been here and I've been working around there since. It was a little awkward at first, trying to learn the whole process and everything, but I'm really happy to work here. It's been a really great experience. Everybody's been helping me, and tongue, he's helped me learn different things as well. So it's been good.
Well, thank you for working so hard on our behalf. Jody, I just wanted to ask you before I turn it over to Ethan, what inspires you to invest like this in your employees? It's a characteristic that I've seen from you for many, many years, and I admire a lot.
I really like people that want to learn. I like people that, doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. It's really about people that want the opportunity and people that are willing to listen and take those opportunities and build off them. And both of these individuals came in and right away you could see that they wanted to learn, they wanted to move up, they wanted to try different things. And both of them are key people to our organization, key people to, one of our biggest lines in the plant. And they do a great job every single day that they come in. And they're committed to the team. They enjoy everyone around them. They brighten the mood of everyone around them. And they just continue to get better every single minute that they're here, and they make everyone around them better. So, and you can see people like that. We need more people like that really wanna grow within the company. And one of the things that we say here is that it's just another language to us. Whether you're Spanish or Somalian or Asian or whatever. I mean, this is another language, and when they're out there, I mean, the neat part is you never know in the department which person out there is deaf and which one's not, because they all just know how to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I have a question for Steve, actually, and perhaps Jody, you touched on it a second ago, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about how many cultures and languages you have at your plants, and how many people you employ, and how you make it inclusive for all those different cultures.
Yeah, so enterprise-wide, we employ nearly 7,000 employees. And probably the best example I can give you of diversity of language is that in our West Central Turkeys plant, there are 18 languages spoken. So frankly, everyone has to find a way to adapt, because you simply can't translate effectively into all those languages. So you do need to find those commonalities in order to do great work.
Jody, any thoughts on dealing with different cultures within your plant?
So I would say that I've been doing this for 30 years, and really, for us, we call it Faribault English, right? So everyone learns some broken English or whatever. It starts that way. I have a number of supervisors that work for me. When they first started, they didn't speak any English, and now they're supervisors that I wouldn't trade them for anything, because one, they take on some ESL. Two, they've come up through the ladder, so they've not only learned English the hard way, but we embrace it here and we learn from them, so that we learn the basics of a lot of languages to communicate. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, see you tomorrow. Some of the defects in the line and things like that. So there's appreciation both ways, and when you do it, you just find that it's one of those things that make the job really, really interesting to me, is because not just the language, but you learn the background behind the people. You learn why they believe in what they believe in, and what makes them who they are. And you find out they're not much different than you, so.
Right. I mean, there was a mention in the film about, the feeling of community and how workplaces can communicate a sense of community beyond just being a workplace. And it seems like you guys have really managed to do that, which is remarkable. I'm curious to learn a bit more about just the practical nature. There was a mention in the film about how deaf workers helped innovate ways to communicate on the floor. And this goes to your work, April. I'm curious how you work into the mix here, and what other ways that workers have figured out how to communicate in that environment with deaf workers.
So, I just joined about 2 years ago. So they were actually set up before I even came here. And so they had already started kind of figuring out their ways of communicating. And actually, even though I went to school for interpreting, they had set up their own kind of language and their own system. So when I came and I started to like help and interpret and everything else, then I would like see them and I'm like, wait, I don't know that sign. That's not a real sign, because they've set up their own language. So then I had to learn the language that they set up between like tongue and the other deaf employees. So it's been a really like cool experience, because they have things that are set up that you wouldn't typically use outside in the real world for signing. So it's been a lot of learning too.
So an example, and the guys can give you some example, but we talk about chilling meat, and if the meat needs to get colder, they'll go like that, and it's kind of like the shivering. So, you know, Mohammed or Arafat, maybe you can give some examples of that, how, you know, your line leads or other people can communicate back and forth with your own language.
Arafat saying, Mohammed, do you want to explain? So I use ASL, but when we go into work, a lot of times, you know, we're using gestures. So sometimes it could be English, sometimes, you know, so when they're working and the line's going, and if you're working, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it could be some simple signs and things like that, but the line is running and you don't always have time to, you know, you have to learn different types of signs and have to keep it simple. And so we'll use gestures, just something that can be really simple, you know, with whatever it is. And so we'd have to keep it simple with our signs.
Steve, you mentioned when you go
to work, it's just, we don't have time, you know, right? That's like we're stuck. And so sometimes, so for example, let's say, you know, we've had food safety. If we talk about food safety being really important. And so if you call somebody over to try to explain something more, then it could be this really long list of things, you know, and that's just one example of things that we have to go through.
Right. So Steve, you mentioned that when you go into these factories that the noise is very loud. And I'm curious for with deaf workers in that situation, whether there actually might be some advantages in terms of how a deaf worker might have better perceptual abilities with their eyes, or be able to feel vibrations and equipment in a different way. Has anyone noticed an actual advantage for these workers in that situation? Maybe Trung or Jody?
Yes. Actually, they a lot of time I was surprised because they know the sign. You know, good example, when the machine start going down or something going to the machine, most of the time they catch before us because they can feel from the. It seems like they feel they can feel from when they stand. You know, like from the floor or the equipment next to it, so they're shaking or something like that, and they can feel that right away and then run. You know, I'm sure they're not going to hear anything.
Yep.
I'm sure they cannot be able to hear anything, but they feel it right away, and they should come over there and shut the machine down.
And Arafat is saying that, yep, and then we can go stop the machine right away because we feel it.
Trung, you're also an immigrant to America, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it seems to me one of the most important ways someone can assimilate into another culture is to have a job and have a community. Can you talk a little bit about that? As you're now an older generation, you're seeing younger immigrants and you're giving them opportunities. I'm just wondering how you reflect on your own experience that way.
Yes, I learned, actually most of the thing I learned from myself when I came here, because when I came to United States in 1992, I'm just like them. I don't speak any English. I just have a very little English when I'm in school in my country, but just a limit, because at that time we have a communist, communists. They took my country. So the reason I came here, just like immigrant, refugee, just like other people, because my dad was worked for the South government when Vietnam War. So that's why the U.S. they have a program for us to came over here. But when I came over here, at that time I have a fiance in my country too. So I don't have opportunity going to school because my goal is to get back to my country as soon as possible to get married with her, you know. So that's my wife right now. And when I came here, 1 month later, I started in work for Children Food. That's a Jennie-O Turkey Store now. So everything I learned from here. I learned any step I move in, and I learn from here. I start from the line worker, line leader, mechanic, and then the coordinator, and they become to the supervisor now. So I went through a lot. We went through a lot of pain, and I totally understand what I expect from the people, and I also understand what my people need from me. So that's why I make my job more easy to work with this guy, because I can be patient with them and give them more chance and more time to to work on something. But I'm strongly believe like Jody saying, they just like other culture, other language, because if I feel like if we can work with the people who cannot speak English, so one of them is this guy. So
Right.
they're very strong. They like all of us, So they can pick it up. They want to step up. They want to show the people out there how good they are, So
Right.
so that helped me.
April, do either one of our deaf workers have any thoughts about the importance of having opportunities in the workplace for their immigrant story?
They're like, who's gonna go? Okay. Yeah, when I came in, with work and stuff, we really focused on trying to be safe, and I really needed to learn. I wanted to learn. And so, I was like, I can do it. I can do it. So that's what I did. I learned stuff. I tried to take advantage of figuring out things and really have that support. And then I developed, and I was able to learn a lot more, and I could figure everything out. I could be safe. I could develop those skills. And so having that support has been really great, and it's helped me learn. We've had people who have come up and that have helped me, and we've really connected in that way, where I didn't even always need an interpreter. We were just we've got people who speak Somali and things like that. And so we would just gesture, we'd figure it out. We'd develop different things. If we had to stop the machine, push the button or something, we had to work the system that way. It's been really beautiful, and I've loved it. Okay, so when I came in here and I started to work here, it's a lot of visual work. And so it's been really great with the line. And sometimes it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. But it's really been great, and work has been great. Tongue's been great. I mean, it's been really great to work with different deaf people and to have that communication and figuring out how we can communicate. And Tongue has always tried, with gesturing and with work and different challenges or different problems that came up. We wanted to make sure that we had that and we could work together. And, just recently, if we have a machine that goes down, it's like, okay, how are we going to do it? It's like, oh, deaf people can't hear, but deaf people can use their eyes. We're very careful. We want to make sure that we're safe. And so it's really important to use our eyes, and we can use that, and we can look around, and we can call the supervisor over if there's a problem, and we can report it out. And then we'll get them, and, we'll have a mechanic come in and they can fix it. And so it's really, with the meat and everything, we got different batches. If the batches get all thrown off, we want to make sure that we get all the meat exact, and that it doesn't matter where it is. We got to figure it all out. And so we coordinate everything to work together, and we do that using, different communication. So the work has been really great.
So Jody and Trung, what would you say to a manager somewhere who was considering working to make their workplace more diverse and more inclusive to people with disabilities? What would you say to them about your experience and what you've learned?
So I can go first, I guess. The one thing that I would tell people is, to give people an opportunity, right? Take them for who they are. Make sure you have the infrastructure to be able to support them being successful, but don't lower your expectation either. I think one thing both of these guys would tell you is we have the same expectation of them as anyone else. If they're going to move up into higher grade positions, they have to earn it. If they make mistakes, we have mentoring sessions with every group. So we don't say, okay, because they're deaf, we're going to lower our standard. Our standards are up here and they're going to stay up there, and everyone has to meet them. And I would tell you, these two have been exceptional. I think they understand it. I think they respect it. I think they like that because they're being treated like everyone else. So, you have to have the infrastructure, but you have to give them the opportunity, and you have to work with them to understand what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are, and use their strengths and build off their weaknesses. And I'm a firm believer in any person that comes in, if they want to learn and they want to grow, then you need to be able to grow that talent.
Trung, any thoughts?
Yeah, so on my opinion is with the people out there, it's not just this guy we have. This guy is just a small group of people, but out there, I believe we have a lot of more people up in the city and all different city. So I hope the people like on the management team, we need to understand it. We give more trust for the people. Sometimes we just make it up and we want to be safe and this and that, and we cannot. We don't give them the opportunity, and also we don't give ourselves an opportunity to find the good people, so that's one of the reasons. And when we work with them is, we don't treat them like handicapped people. We like Jody say, we give them same expectation with other group, and so show them appreciate, and also we also give them discipline when they make a mistake. So we do all same with other people. So make them feel like, okay, I kind of try, and I kind of show you what I got. So and they don't feel like, okay, you guys should treat me like a handicap and treat me special. They don't like that at all.
Right. I think it's maybe one of my favorite parts of the film is the pride that's you clearly have in your workers, both for you and Jody, that the true pride that you feel in seeing these young men succeed. Steve, do you have other questions?
I just think about, as I've been in this position and these opportunities I've been able to observe, much like this one, is that these cultures don't just make our company richer. I think they make your personal life richer. I mean, Jody kind of referenced it, this opportunity to get to know stories of people who have been through infinitely more difficult circumstances than I could ever even imagine. And to me, that just creates an opportunity really, again, to strengthen who we are, to understand better as a company how we can grow, because that's how our world is coming together. And so I'm a huge, passionate fan for investing and being more intentional about hearing these stories like the ones that we're hearing today. So I wanted to ask April, it's clear from the film that you're not just a translator and that you're really a powerful advocate for people in the deaf community. Where does your passion come from?
Well, growing up, I guess it started in middle school. I had a friend who's deaf. I was a swimmer, a competitive swimmer, and she was a competitive diver. And so I learned some signs through that, but I was in middle school, so a lot of the signs are really not useful. I mean, they were like stupid and dumb and things like that, but that's where it actually started, was just that friendship and that connection that I had. And being that I was born and raised in Faribault and having so many people in the deaf community around us. And then I went to high school, and one of my friends, Steph, his parents are deaf. So in connections with them. And then I actually took an ASL class in high school as well. So my teacher, Deb, has really been influential in even going and picking my college. So I had went and picked my college, which is the place that she actually had graduating from. So that's been kind of where it all started, was starting from when I was young in like middle school up until right now.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the deaf community right now? What does progress towards inclusion, where can we make more progress in that regard?
So right now, one of the biggest problems that I see happening is having equal rights and equal access. So like, for example, what I've seen happen before is you'll have a deaf person who's a patient and wants to set up an appointment for like a doctor's appointment. And they will call or they'll try to set up an appointment, and that facility or that hospital will say, oh, well, we have an interpreter available these days. And it's very limited. They don't have the same access as other hearing people. It's limited to when the interpreter is there, which is not equal access. So that's one problem I've seen. And then also with captioning. So like, if you can imagine going onto like Instagram and wanting to like look at maybe your favorite actor and what they're doing, and then you scroll and the only thing that you see is just lips moving and you can't hear anything. They don't have access to all of the different things on social media that we do, because people don't provide captioning, because you're not required, obviously, but to have more of a inclusive environment, that would be one good start, is making sure that deaf people have the access that is actually equivalent to what we have. So, and I think one way that that can be accomplished is just from learning and becoming educated, because that's a problem I see is people are like, oh, okay, oh, they're deaf, or they become like nervous, like, oh, this is a deaf person, like, how am I going to talk with them? I don't know sign. When really it can just start with writing or using your phone to type back and forth and become like associated and connected with that person, that deaf person. And so it just starts by learning and having that willingness to learn about their culture, about their experiences, about how everything impacts them.
Well, thank you for helping educate us a little bit. It was super knowledgeable. You're super knowledgeable in the community, and thanks for all your work with our team members as well. But what an amazing story. I hope those of you that joined us today really enjoyed it and are interested in becoming a passionate advocate for what we're doing with all of our plant professionals as we bring them into the workforce. In honor of the group that's joining us today, Hormel Foods is donating $5,000 to the National Association for the Deaf. And this is a nonprofit organization that focuses on preserving and protecting and promoting the civil and human linguistic rights of the deaf and hard of hearing people in the U.S. And if you're interested, others in donating to this organization. Yeah, right, exactly. If you'd like to donate to this organization, you can visit their website at nad.org. So thank you again, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow for our next film, There's Something About Grace. You won't want to miss it. Thank you.